Dean Sapolu, welcome along to Stride 365. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me there, Gareth.
Dean, I'm really excited to record this episode because as a sporting parent, the last sporting parent guest we had on here, Richard Bell, is one of our highest grossing downloads. So there's a lot of sporting parents out there listening to the pod, wanting to glean as much information and experience from people like yourself who've going through this process as much as gone through it. To also learn the red flags and the pitfalls. So yeah, but no pressure, mate. But there'll be a lot of people listening in, which is cool. Now we haven't had as much interaction as maybe some of my other guests. You are the dad of three boys, two of which I've had a little bit of interaction with my time at Melbourne Victory, through three pre-academy, sorry, into the academy. So that's kind of how we know each other. But I'm excited because yeah, all three of you boys are at completely different stages, but on the same pathway towards that pre-performance stage or performance stage. So yeah, excited to learn how each boy is different, but each stage you guys have evolved your parenting style. So yeah, maybe just give us a little bit of a snapshot of your three boys, just for the audience, so they can get a bit of a picture in their mind.
Yeah, great. So I've got a 19-year-old who's been through the club environment, through MPL, through the academy environment at Melbourne Victory, onto senior MPL environment, and has had overseas experience with a pro contract to date, and also with experience in the national team. I've also got another younger boy who's 19, who's had experience overseas, playing football with up until the states team at the nationals, right through to the pre-academy and academy at Melbourne Victory, through the highs and lows of that, and now on to a different journey. And I've got a younger one who started off a lot later in his football career, had gaps to sort of achieve and different goals to achieve, but he's now gone off and grown in leaps and bounds through great coaching and great advice. Now at Melbourne Victory Academy as well.
Yeah, and two of those three boys are goalkeepers, so they've got the crazy gene somewhere as well.
Yeah,
Maybe it's from you. Maybe it's from you, right? So you're also a decent athlete back in the day. You played at the University of Florida, the Gators in American football. How did that come about? That's an amazing school, big time sport D1 program. How did that come about for you?
yeah. So yeah, massive school, NCAA school, Division One. So my family was always American football family. I guess if you put on a scale of AFL, there wouldn't be many people, I guess, that could sort of be at the same level as where my family was. To give a perspective, probably maybe a Brisbane Lions player with four premierships might be close. But my family was equal to that with four Super Bowls and Super Bowl rings, but never in the accolades and the lights of all the big names that they played with, the likes of Steve Young, Jerry Rice, um, throughout the years at San Francisco 49ers. So when you're a big guy protecting all these quarterbacks, no one really knows you, but you do get a lot of foot in the door, a lot of help through the door, having a lot of achievements and a lot of networks and people that you've played back with in the past. So, yeah, my career sort of started when I came across here to Australia, and I played volleyball at the state level in a Premier Division, also for state teams, winning all 3 years of my time national medals, and being in the national development squad with Australia at the AIS. Uh, Moved on, got a bit bored. Height was an issue. I guess that's sort of a soccer thing as well, because, or a football thing, especially when it comes to goalkeepers and centre backs. You can start to, regardless of how technical you are, some coaches might look at you at your height first before even looking at your ability. So yeah, I moved on and done a bit of golf in the US, back in Florida, and a bit in the UK. Then coming back, and I sort of maybe wanted to do things a little bit different, but not really my roots of football. Went and played league and union, played at some quite high grand finals, state grand finals, and then said, that's it, yeah, I want to go back and play. And that's when I tapped on the door of my family, my uncle, and said, oh, how do I get in? He got me in the door. Obviously, with a trial process over there, it's a little bit different. You've got to do a lot of testing, and if your testing's up to it, you're in the door. As long as you can show you can sprint, run, jump, do all those amazing things, you'll get in the door. And having a bit of a running background and running a 10.32 as my best 100 time was a no-brainer sort of to get me to NCAA and Division 1.
What a rich sporting tapestry of family history, but also the diversity of these sports at high level for yourself. So no doubt genetics has played a good role, decent role within the boys' trajectory. But let's just start with your oldest son. So Kai, he's 19 right now. He spent some time within Melbourne Victory's A-League Academy a number of years ago. So let's maybe just start at that starting point. What was that like for you as a sporting parent? Let's start with some of the challenges, right? Challenges, just to paint the picture of the commitments, sacrifices, the either financial or time or personal that especially athletes listening to this can kind of gain a maybe deeper understanding or appreciation, and maybe the coaches listening this as well, because as a coach, I kind of understand there's sacrifice somewhere, but I don't maybe necessarily know all of the ins and outs of that. So just paint a picture for what it's like for a 15, 16-year-old to be in an A-League environment, A-League Academy environment.
Yeah. So as a parent, a lot of big challenges were you're sort of based on what the senior academy is doing and what the A-League academies are doing, and it all flows from there. So a lot of communication comes to you at last minute. So training and schedules were very ad hoc. You had to change your day-to-day schedule and workload to be able to meet those challenges. So for myself, we would get a text or a message late in the day, 2 o'clock, and we would have to quickly run and drop a bag off at school with his gear, or pick him up from school to then get to the academy to go to training. If we dropped the bag off at school, it was because it wasn't planned. Training was, yep, get there today, you've got to train. And that's the same thing as if you're in the A-League or anywhere in Europe or Asia or US. Coach can text you and say, that's it, we're getting on a bus and we're going here training, or we've got a match. So you've got to be ready, really flexible, and give up a lot of your time. So we would drive 4 nights a week out to Maribyrnong, to Robert Barrett, where we would spend anywhere between 2 hours on the pitch to sometimes up to 4 hours. And that's being in multiple age groups across the junior and senior academies. But with that, it's not just a matter of giving up your time and effort, but it's also you've got to just take a step back from your family as well. You might have younger ones or older ones at home. You don't get much time because it is very cost consuming when it comes to driving, the fuel, wear and tear on your vehicle. And leaving work early, sometimes you just got to try and make it up the next day or next week or something with your employer. So they've got to try and be flexible, and you've got to try and negotiate with them as well to say, look, my son's at this stage, this is where he's at. I might have to drop any day and leave a little bit earlier just to get him to A, B, or C, or to X. So the biggest challenge was just that time factor. The cost factor, there are a little bit of cost factors. And they're getting a little bit more now when it comes to the academies and tours and tournaments. But it was more the time and giving up your time and have to be there all the time, because it's not something you can just drop off your son and say, yeah, all right, great, I'll come back in 2 hours and pick you up. Because it might not have been 2 hours, it might have been 3 hours, it might have been 4 hours. You weren't sure how long he was staying on the pitch or for that particular day.
Was that kind of random or ad hoc or unknown in terms of training days and volume and time? For me, that's that seems a little bit strange. But is that because he's a goalkeeper that's working across multiple age groups and therefore different time slots for the junior and senior academy?
Correct. Yeah. So that was the main big factor was whenever the keeper coach could get there. So the specialist training that was involved, you had to be there for a certain time for say the junior time. Then you might have trained with the junior academy. Then you're off to the senior academy because 90% of the year you probably didn't even train with your own age group. You're always training up one age group or two age groups up because obviously come weekend when you're back in your own age group, that extra bit of intensity, the speed of the game, and the physicality, that muscle memory, you're bringing back to your own game on the weekend at your own age group, which just helps you with your own performance. But yeah, it was sort of because you're in multiple junior and senior academies, the time was spent a lot longer and it was more ad hoc. But it probably wouldn't happen if you're more of an outfielder. You'd have your set structure and schedule going from the week.
Yeah, but there's always that little bit of flexibility across time. So you mentioned flexibility being a big kind of trait that parents need to be adaptable and aware of. You mentioned negotiating some sort of release or early release or flexibility with your employer. Is there kind of any negotiation that goes on between parent and club? So within the academy manager around, I don't know, exams are coming up, or look, he's been on the pitch 4 hours this day already. Like, can we have a little bit more clarity around the forward planning, or is it literally you're at the whim of the academy? Like, how much give and take is there for parents? And if parents are feeling the stress of this is becoming a lot, like how forthcoming have you experienced the interaction and negotiating with say a professional or high performance environment to allow a little bit more balance, for the family?
Look, there is a bit of flexibility and there's got to be a little bit of give and take. But at the end of the day, you are in a professional environment and there's another boy who's willing to take your position and stuff. So, if that could be a matter of you've got a medical appointment to be at and it's only going to be 15 minutes and it's going to take you an hour and a half to get there and an hour and a half to get back. And you think, well, is that really worth my time to take him there for that little visit to just get a tick in the box or to get a check over? Well, there's another boy who's waiting to do that and take your spot. So, yeah, there is a bit of flexibility, but at the end of the day, because we've got so many high number of registrations and kids out there who want your position, I guess there's not really that you're at the mercy of the club when it comes to that sort of stuff. So, you know, and that's overseas as well. You're taking someone else's paycheck, you're taking someone else's national position if you're a foreigner. So, they're going to be wanting to get not blood off you, but your expectations are going to be higher. If they're there at a certain time, you're going to be there earlier. If the bus arrives at 5, you're going to be there earlier. So, a little bit of flexibility, but you are at their mercy at the same stage.
Yeah.
So sorry to have to not really a black and white answer, but like some days there might be. You might be able to say, yeah, okay, look, he's played X amount at school sport this weekend. Can you have this week off because of player management or this evening off? And sometimes there's that little bit of flexibility. But sometimes they might say, well, you've still got to come down, still be part of the squad and still interact with the boys and be with the coaching staff. So you still got to give up your time to go out there.
You brought in the overseas kind of reflections there. Let's bring that in now. So, Kai was fortunate enough to go abroad on trial. So he was at Atalanta in Italy, PSV Eindhoven in Holland. There's two very big clubs in both of those countries. How did those come about? Can you pull back the curtain? Was that through an agent, through being scouted? Were you over there visiting a holiday? Yeah, talk us about how the trial began and then what was it like over there?
So that was during the COVID period. So we missed out on actually going overseas and participating with PSV in Atalanta, but we did attend a trial with PSV in Atalanta here in Australia. We were lucky enough to have representations from those clubs here and a lot of other clubs. And I guess going back to your question, it was through an agent who brought these coaches over from overseas. We were lucky enough because a lot of coaches sort of once they've left Australia, that you don't have that interaction with the coach anymore. But like I, on a regular basis, will text the PSV Eindhoven coach just to see what's going on, or if I've got friends heading overseas in that direction, I might be able to slot them in with a bit of a tour of the facilities and the grounds and get them a few hours guided tour around there. But that's a connection that you still need to keep and have, because at the end of the day, you might want to go back there and you might want to use those networks in those certain areas. But on the flip side, we did get a very nice glowing player review in writing from PSV, which we're able to hold and keep and use that to open doors here within Australia and also overseas by other clubs, coaches, agents, scouts, sort of looking at the report and seeing, yep, this is a quality player assessment, and this has come from a very high level club within Europe, and that sort of opens your door, sort of, and pathways to other lower levels.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see, big name clubs, venture out through their off season to Australia, to New Zealand. Like I think Barcelona was here. I remember West Ham coming to New Zealand. What's your take on this as a parent who's had kids go through this? Is this a money grab opportunity? For me, it seems it's quite expensive for 2 days, and they kind of promise you that there's a chance to come in on trial. Like, is it legit or is it a money grab? And then what other kind of things are you getting back for your money outside of the experience of working with some of these coaches? You spoke about a written feedback form, which has some weight, which is great. I wasn't aware of that. What's your feeling around these big clubs coming to our shores for these sort of quote unquote scouting opportunities?
I guess it is a money spinner in one way. There's a person making a lot of cash behind the door, but if you know realistically that your son, if you've got, not that you've got blinkers on and you might think that he's fantastic, but if you think he's got a genuine chance somewhere, it's good to give him that opportunity to see if that can open up further doors. And like might not be the best player at your club or at the academy or wherever, but there is a home for you somewhere. You might not be looking at, say, a peak of an EPL in England or a low grade in Bulgaria, which is still sort of Champions League sort of space. You might be somewhere in Sweden in the middle, or Norway or Austria or something, which will give you that. Well, you find a home. So everyone's got a home. So I guess you've got to, let yourself have that opportunity once in a while and give that. But yes, it is very expensive. A lot of these things just sort of offer different variety of options. So things such as, fully paid trips, partially paid trips, and non-funded sort of trips. I guess they're the ones you want to stay away from. And most of the ones that you see these days that are around the traps are ones that you've got to pay for or partially pay for, and are only giving you a week or two or a little bit more in country, and that's just not enough. Definitely if you want to go somewhere and you want to play somewhere overseas.
Yeah. And, Malaysia had quite a big influence on Kai's journey. There was a couple of opportunities through the national age group teams there and some trials and a professional contract. So how did you go from Melbourne Victory into Malaysia? Was there, strong family ties? Was there interest shown? Yeah, just talk us through that journey.
Yeah, so from Melbourne Victory, he sort of went to MPL 1 seniors here and used that sort of stepping stone to then be able to go overseas. And I guess the main factor that got him into Malaysia was probably a good little network of Australian sort of coaches and agents that are sort of living overseas or have connections through playing or coaching together. So there is a good little growth of Australian coaches overseas that you can sort of, as long as you know someone, I guess that's the connection. You've got to know someone that can sort of tap you into these sort of resources to get you overseas. That got us sort of overseas. But I guess the main stepping stone that he had is he spent some time in Thailand and played with a couple of games over there. One being a Pro League 3 team um, over there, which got him sort of a little bit more noticed. Heading into Malaysia, where Malaysia were offering him to go and train with the project squad, which is basically their national under 20 team that plays in Division 2. So you could say something like if you were in Holland, you know, your PSV Jong, your junior team, just playing in a lower division. So he was heading over there first to train with them and trial with them and see how that goes. And as I was saying before, you can't just expect to be there for 1 week, 2 weeks, because things change and things you've got to be flexible and adaptable. And what I mean by that is, I think I landed on the Saturday in Malaysia to meet up with him coming in from Thailand, and on Sunday I had already a phone call saying, "Look, you're not going there. You're going to this club. Get on a plane and be at this location by Monday by 5 p.m. Training starts at 5 p.m." And I've heard a lot of other different stories where players have been overseas for a period of time and they then have had calls because they're there in country, and that's what sort of got them to the next step and the next stage of their going to their professional career.
In terms of getting, into the country to experience, said trial, is the club covering these costs? Is it back on the family? Like, are you going over? You said you met with him there. Like, are you expected to chaperone? Are you expected not to chaperone? Just sort of, paint the picture for parents listening who might have kids of whatever sport. Maybe there's an opportunity to go abroad on trial. Like, what are they on the hook for? Do you encourage going and being the local support as well, or do you encourage actually not being kind of in the bubble and clouding things? Like, yeah, how do you see that working for in the future for Kody and Kalen as well?
Yeah, so look, I think for the first initial time when they are going overseas, it is good to be with them, but you need to sort of step back and give them their space and be able to do their thing. So they're not on show for you; they're on show for the club, and then they can sort of more get entwined with the local culture and all the different languages that are going on the pitch. So especially in Malaysia and where we were, a lot of Spanish sort of coaches. There's a lot of Spanish being taught, but there's also a lot of the local lingo there. So yes, you've got to sort of be there because there is a security sort of thing. Your son could be 12, 14, and in a foreign country, it is different. But do give them their space, and a lot of clubs will probably not let you there at the training or the trials that go on. So it's probably pretty much a drop and say hello and goodbye and off you go. But you've got to be there for the first time, especially for the younger ones. It's a good comfort for them as well, having someone from home there. Then if you do decide to go and come back or go and leave them, at least they've got a base to start with and a building block there that they've got that comfort that, all right, family were here, family is still here. They're just in a different location or a little bit further away, especially if they don't have family in that area, because that can get very tough. If you've got family in that location, in that country that you can use and support as part of your network, that's an added bonus. But if you don't, that could be one of the big blockers or one of your big turning points for the young player not wanting to be there because they've got no one to hang around with and just do what they like to do outside of sports, so the unstructured stuff.
How much support does the host club provide you as a family, or is it, hey, we'll just open the door to the training environment, get yourself here by 5 p.m. and everything up to that point is on you guys?
So there's obviously different various, they can say you've got to pay everything at your own cost. For us, everything was sort of included for us. So the club that looked after us, they put us in the club hotels, which were right opposite the training grounds. Yeah, the juniors were a little bit away, but all I had to do was cover the cost of, say, a cab ride if I wanted to go and watch the training for the day. If I wanted to hang around, just stay around, that was at my own cost. But they looked after everything. And when you go into um, the pro contract, if you want to tap into that later, they had more added benefits and more things that they could provide players outside of soccer that sort of can maybe occupy their time and prepare them for the future.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I had a Zoom call this week with a prospect player from not in Melbourne, let's put it that way. And yeah, had to be quite frank. Like, we're not offering you a trial. We kind of know a little bit about you, seen some footage. There's been some good people talk some good things. If you can get yourself here and facilitate living in Melbourne for a period of time, we'll open the doors to our environment and have you in. I think you've kind of passed that first test, but it's not like we're not initiating you to come on a trial. There's no contract potentially ready to go. So we're not necessarily the ones that are needing to advocate or drive all the additional part. I think needs to be quite a clear difference between, are you going somewhere that the club wants you to go in for trial? Therefore, I think you have a lot of capabilities to go and ask, what support are you going to offer me in order to action this? If you're
Yeah.
just wanting to go and experience something, then potentially that sits more back on the family. Is that how your experience would allow it?
So like, yeah, normally with a trial, if you're going overseas, it would pretty much be at your own cost, like you're saying. Yep, we've looked at your videos, we've looked at you. You look pretty good. If you want to get yourself over here and spend X amount of time with us, we're happy to accommodate that, but it's at your own cost. Whether that's travel, accommodation, food, regardless, it's all on your own cost. I guess we were a little bit lucky in the sense that we were heading to the national team and the under 20s, and they were covering all costs. And we were stopped by probably the biggest team in the country to say, well, why are you going to the national team? Come to the biggest club and we'll look after you. So they sort of turned us around and we did us in a different way. But generally, yeah, everything would be at your own cost, unless you're coming back for the second time. You might have been able to negotiate with that club to say, look, yep, we really liked you. You've got to come back in 12 months or 1 week or 1 month or whatever it is. What we'll do is you cover your flights and we'll cover everything on ground. And then you might do really well. And then the club might say, well, look, we really want you back next time. We're going to cover everything. And by that stage, you're probably already in negotiations into your contract and what you can add in there, whether that's rental, flights, money. Obviously, that's the big one everyone wants. But there's other little things that you can add into there too.
Yeah. I guess while this is going on for Kai, we can't forget about the two other boys that are forging their journey as well, 5 years younger and 7 years younger. So they're more juniors and it's coming into youth, right? So both those two boys, Kody and Kalen, are playing federation football. They're playing pre-academy or academy football and club football. So how are you able to divide and conquer, or was it, everybody's going and following each other around? Like, that's a challenge having three boys or three children. Luckily, it was the same sport, but could easily be different sports. How did you and the family support network manage not only three kids, but each kid having different environments to manage within their own environment, federation, club, private academies?
I guess one way is you got to be prepared as a parent. You got to plan your week in advance, or if not, a couple of weeks in advance, because there might be some times where you've got something that you can't get to, or games are on at the same time, but you've got to try and leverage off support network. And that's other parents within the team, or other people within the community that can maybe help you out, or even family that can maybe help you out and get you that other player to another location where you can't get to, especially if you've got three kids and one's at one location at A and the other kids at location B. You've got to try and get someone to get the other ones at location C. So you've got to have a really good support network around you. Yeah, you probably forge a few enemies along the way, but you've got to really use that network and really communicate. I think communication is a massive thing when it comes from parents to players and to coaches. You've got to have a really open communication with all the groups, because if it's not there, sometimes it just doesn't work for you, and you're not going to get that player to that other game when you've got to be somewhere else.
Now, both the younger boys were pretty good at other sports as well, right? You got badminton, you got discus, you got swimming. Again, coming back to your family tree, that's probably not surprising, but was that a purposeful choice for you as family to go, hey, let's diversify for social reasons, for certain different physical literacy reasons? Did the boys just want to go and do these other sports? What's your take around, bringing in other disciplines as opposed to just specializing in football in your story early on?
Yeah, so I always wanted to give my boys a bit of a base and a background and those basic motor skills. So we always started with athletics and the basic core skills of just running, jumping, and throwing, and that can just be taken into anything. So with say with Kai with goalkeeping, he started off and he did taekwondo, that flexibility and that core muscle strength throughout your lower back, your abdominals, and into your butt and your hamstrings is a big benefit for goalkeepers with their athletic ability to be able to do sort of their vertical jumps and having a bit of not being scared when they have to go for the ball as well. I guess that was always one thing, playing AFL football. You played AFL football, so that was always another one. Not being scared of going in packs, and I guess that always helps with your set pieces. So there's always other skills that you can do, whether that's gymnastics that can help build those skills. So like athletics, you've got sprinting and you got long distance too, probably of your main things there. And being on a football field, running box to box, sprinting, great, but also having endurance and a taste for doing that for 90 minutes. You've got to be able to do that too, because obviously that's something that a coach will look at down the track, someone who can last in 90 plus, or someone who can only last 20, 25 minutes, because that's all you're going to give me. That's what you're going to get for that player. So yeah, I did encourage it, and I did make sure that the boys did do various other things because it also helps in the highs and lows of, I guess, soccer. Because if you're having a lull in soccer, it doesn't have to be results driven, just your own performance and your own development, and having a little bit of a bad month because you can't always be on top. I guess if you're having a bit of success in other things, whether that's academic or music or another sport, then you can have a bit of self-achievement, and that can then bring back up your soccer the next month or the next week, and also your performance is then back up at a high on that. So having those other sports sort of helps that wave of ups and downs, those highs and lows in your main sport to hopefully turn it around.
So if we bring Kalen into the story predominantly now, he's 13. He's just gone through a club season, a pre-academy campaign, a set of trials, and he's just been offered a place in next season's Melbourne Victory Academy, which is incredible, right? So it's sort of 7 years on from, the first time that this picture presents itself to you. You're 7 years more experienced in terms of how you deal with the pitfalls, the challenges, the logistics, the planning. Are you now, as a parent, more confident and comfortable to be more forceful with the organisation, in this case, Melbourne Victory, or have you discovered that actually that's not the right way to go forward, and it's not my journey to follow through anymore? It's Kalen's job. I'm going to take more of a step back, or are you taking more of a step forward through I guess, your evolution as a sporting parent over those sort of 5, 6 years?
Yeah, I guess it is a very different in the age gap. Like, because Kalen's still only 12, hasn't turned 13 yet, so he's still going through a lot of changes within himself, growth spurts, maturity, and going through teenage years. So there's always those ups and downs, and obviously with puberty as well. So they don't help, and they that's a concoction that just sort of is just brewing in the background. That sort of all it takes is just one sort of thing to trigger off anything at training, and that's it. That's anyone. And you've got these four other mixtures here, just making that a bad night or bad experience. So I guess from myself as learning from those mistakes and just sort of just being there. So making sure that they can talk to you and you're not sort of I guess one of those parents that are in the car and when you're going home going, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, or you did do that, but just, really let them talk if they want to talk. If they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk. Maybe give them an open question just so they are a bit more comforting, but just, you know, let them experience and let them, you're sort of a coach than a parent. You're sort of getting them to come up with their own answers to their own questions as well. So, if they have a bad day or a bad session, they can talk to you and they can talk to their coaches because that's a big thing, to have all that support from their coaches and the support staff that you have at an academy, which is a huge plus compared to just normal clubs where you've got your coach, your assistant coach, and your TD, having all these other people. They've got other avenues to talk to. So if they don't want to talk to you that day, they can talk to that support crew. If they don't want to talk to the coach, they've got the support crew. If they don't want to talk to the support crew, they've got the coaches. So there's always going to be someone there. So I guess, taking all that in and just letting them drive their own path, not sort of me driving their path. If they want to go overseas, because Malaysia's looking at them, great. I don't want to be the one to push, but in the background, just let them enjoy it, have fun, and let them keep learning because when they get to that 18 sort of mark now, like where Kai is, you've got to create your own networks. You've got to create your own coaches networks because, if something doesn't go right or you don't have a good year at a certain club or you want to move, you've got to have your network there. You've got to be able to, call a coach and say, look, you're moving to X club, can I come with you? Or another player, you've become friends with them. They're going to another club. They might drag you along with them to a higher level, say from MPL2 or VPL1 to MPL1 or to overseas somewhere or to, US college system or one of the other ones that are like that, like Japanese schools or Korean schools, or you've got to build that network so people can take you along as well for that ride. So you've got to be able to use your communication from when you're younger to be able to communicate with players, coaches, and other people come later on in life. Because if you're not comfortable in talking to anyone in your younger years, well, you'll probably struggle to have that network and that communication. You'll probably be lost. You'll probably be asking your dad or whatever, can I get to it? Can you get me to a club? Can you get me to wherever, to a trial? Where at least if they're comfortable and they've got that ability to communicate, they can look for their own options. They can create their own pathways and they can create their own destiny where they want to go. And I guess they'll always keep learning in that way because you don't want to stop learning because that creates all the fun and makes you want to come back the next day to play the game, the sport of football or soccer, for the older people. So I guess the big take is that communication because that'll then take you through to your older years.
We in HPAD or coaching talk about age and stage appropriate. People can be the same age but at different stages of their journey. So your boys are different ages and different stages, right? So Kalen's 12, just entering an academy system. Kai's 19, he's gone through that as a professional environment. So very different ages and different stages. So how do you as a sporting dad provide all three boys support? Is it kind of one size fits all because they're your boys and they're all kind of the same? Is it very, very different because they're unique individuals? Or is it different because of the different stages or different ages that they're at? And yeah, what have you learnt over that kind of the last sort of 10 years that maybe you're doing more of now from a support perspective that maybe you wish you could have done a little bit more of at the beginning for Kai?
Yeah, so I guess one of the main ones to sort of that I look at is, yeah, you've got this structured environment, and that's all great. And whether you're training 3, 4, 5, like I was doing six days overseas, that's all scheduled, and that can get a bit tedious sometimes. So, and it can get a bit tiring and a bit putting you down if you're not having good days. You've got bad days all the time. So I guess having a lot of unstructured time with the boys, whether that still is, with a ball and with football, or just getting out and about and doing something else totally different, having a bit of two-on-two basketball, going to have a bit of volleyball, going to have a bit of a golf down at a or mini golf or whatever it is, still in a competitive environment, no doubt, because the boys are very competitive, but getting them away from, the day-to-day sort of pressures of everything that's going on in their academy life or club life or overseas opportunities, and just really step back and be boys and have a bit of fun, but still keeping certain skill sets up that can help them back with their eye coordination, say back with the ball with soccer, with dribbling or passing or keeping their head up. So they all link in, but I guess a lot of unstructured play time and family time to keep them going and keep them motivated.
Yeah,
As such.
I can imagine the family mini golf would be quite competitive with the three boys and yourself. That's for sure. You spoke a little bit just before around like the value of networking. So if we bring in, say, the athletes now to this piece, so I guess you could be talking to your boys who are also athletes, younger version of themselves, or as they are now. So networking is a big one, right? Because if you create a strong network with certain friends who go on this journey, they can bring you with you. Equally, coaches you have a good rapport with, they can advocate on your behalf. Equally so, they can say no chance. And part of a conversation I had with a previous guest, Claudia Bunge, she was fantastic for me, and therefore I was a bit of an influence to bring her here to Melbourne Victory. Equally so, it could have been, I get asked about players all the time. I say no chance in hell. She was good teammates with a player that played over in Denmark who advocated on her behalf to their coach, and she ended up getting a contract at that club in Denmark. So other than the networking piece, what other advice to young athletes or youth athletes on this journey, from a parental perspective, can you offer? And the reason why I think this is a really important question especially for young people listening in, is I'm assuming a lot of mum and dad are saying similar sort of stuff, but because it's mum and dad, they kind of dismiss it because mum and dad doesn't know what's going on about. So one of my pet desires, I guess, of these sort of conversations is a lot of the themes, a lot of the messages are the same. So the more that young people hear the same message from external and their mum or dad are also talking about it, they might have a little bit more weight and confidence to listen to mum and dad as well, because at the end of the day, they have their best interests at heart. So yeah, speaking directly down the lens now to young athletes from a different parent perspective, what are the two or three big messages that you think athletes need to get right?
Probably the biggest things that athletes need to get right is to probably set their own goals and have their own discipline. Because without having a discipline, you can sort of lead yourself away. But don't ever go past the fact that school and finishing school is a massive big key, because yes, you can go overseas. You might last 6 months, you might last 12 months, you might last 25 years, but you need something at the end of the day to back yourself up. So, you've got to make that time to make sure that you are achieving the right results at school. So that way, at the end of the day, if something else falls, or you don't actually get that contract to Europe, to Manchester United or Manchester City that you want, you've got a backup. And if you still love the sport and the game, there's still avenues for you to do, whether that be player, coach, media, some sort of physio or something like that, or strength and conditioning you can go into. But make sure you stay focused throughout your studies, because so I see a lot of kids that do take that sort of a bit for granted, thinking, yeah, I'm going to go overseas, I'm going to be a player, I'm going to be an athlete. Yeah, that's great. And they've gone overseas and they're great, they're going to be an athlete, but they let their results slip. So when things don't go well and they have to come back, they've got nothing to fall back onto, because their grades were just a bit too low from where they wanted to be. They still have that passion and drive, but they can't do what they want to do. So the main thing is to stay disciplined, still do your schoolwork, and focus on that and achieving the right grades, so you can have a pathway after your career going forward.
Yeah, it's one thing that unfortunately is not in your control, right, as an athlete, is how long that club wants you.
Yeah.
sometimes by accident, by an injury or whatever, but sometimes by new coach comes in, new chairman comes in and goes, "No, your face doesn't fit here. Out you go," and maybe somebody else doesn't want you. So, yeah, knowing what's maybe not always what's knowing what's next, but having a good foundation of education behind you is critically important. What about if you just spin it now and go, you probably would like to have the chance to speak face to face to many of the coaches and give your opinion, but trying to speak more globally here, what, either, straight up your opinion to coaches of any codes should be maybe more aware of or conscious of, or, do less of this, do more of this, or is there any prime examples that you can think back that you can share around, really positive interactions with coaches or equally really negative influences that, me as a coach listening to go, oh, I wasn't aware of that, or yeah, I do that sometimes myself. So yeah, take the conversation directly to the coaches where you like, but yeah, there's a big part of the audience will be coaches that don't often ask for feedback from parents, don't often create a space where the parental voice is heard, and I think listening to some of the conversations on this show, I've certainly picked up a lot from this question. So yeah, take it as you wish.
Yeah, like I think you hit the nail on the head there, Gareth. Like you can't have these blinkers on as a coach or have this silo up and down where I'm the coach, you're the player, and you're the parent, because that just does not firstly build a good culture wherever you are, but it then also then affects the player and his personal and his own development going forward. So I guess for the coach, the more open you are, and you can't be too open. Like you can't just answer every single phone call that comes. Every parent that wants to call you. If you've got 20 plays, that's 20 phone calls a day. You've got to be a little bit selective, but in effect, you're still got to be open. So open communication. So having the TD being open to the coach, to the player, and to the parent, right across the board, builds a good relationship and has a good key. And it shows, especially overseas, and when we were in Malaysia, the Spanish coaches, or they're all Spanish coaches over there at the moment, whether that be from Spain or from Argentina or from Venezuela or somewhere from there, their communication and their manner and the way that they're happy to speak with you and give you as much information as possible, and to just really interact with you and keep you feeling as if you're one of them. So even if you're in a trial sort of phase, they'll keep you as if you're one of them and already a club member, not someone on the outer. They make it very personal, make you feel welcoming. Where here it could be a matter of just, yep, you get that offer, you get that contract, you drop off, and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. At least they'll show you around. They'll show you where the kitchen is, where meals are. They'll show you where the ice baths are, where the kids get changed, where the pitches are, where the bus drops them off. They'll explain everything from start to finish. They'll keep those communication lines on open. Even on the off season, when you fly back, whether that be training programs or whatever. So I guess that communication is a huge must. I've still got coaches that I just had a chat to yesterday. There's a 2010 tournaments under 14s tournament in Indonesia going on. Going to be going on at the moment, where there's a representative pretty much from nearly every one country in Asia, being Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, with your Spanish clubs, Japanese clubs as well, and just getting information, because obviously there's an Australian club over there as well, being Football West, the Western Australian state team, and they just sort of want to know what the squads are like, what they're made of, how they play. But because we've still got that good relationship, we can still have that chat, and the lines have opened, and that keeps the line open. So if you want to go back and you want to train there at any time, you've got a holiday, you want to put part of your holiday towards training while you're there, the doors are always going to be open, because you've kept those good lines of communication open. Where I guess if you want to technically call it the bad coach that has the silo, you're not really going to travel with him go with him or spend any time with him at any other club, even if he moves, and ask you because you're going to say, well, we didn't really have a good relationship. There wasn't really much communication there. My parents weren't involved. I wasn't involved as a player. Yeah, I'm not going to come and go ahead with you. So, yeah, I can't harp more on communication up and down from player to coach to TD to parent and anyone else within the club as well, because that brings you into that culture as well. They don't have to be part of that tree as well.
Yeah, everyone has a choice, right? And a big part of coaching is recruitment as much as your ability
Mm.
to improve players. So just like players talk, parents talk, and in
Yeah,
a good
100%.
way and in a bad way, right? It's no different than the conversations had about the networking.
Mm-hmm.
One parent doesn't have a great interaction with a coach, they're going to have a conversation. But if another parent is actually a really good collaboration, and they might be able to go, well, actually, maybe you need to just go and ask him the question. He or she is quite open. So, yeah, by providing a parent, with all of the information at the right appropriate time, and then they can kind of, all be on the same page is for me, a non-negotiable. It's little bits of information to some parents where Chinese whispers starts and therefore the information gets distorted. Some people
Mm-hmm.
feel they've missed out because I've only hearing the second hand. I think that communication piece to parents and all parents equally is critical, right? Because that helps that bond, that helps the feeding back the whatever information to the player, to the athlete, to ensure that that relationship is strong, but also the connection back to the club in our situation is also positive.
Correct. Like, and if I put it back in another way, like if you're a coach who wants to build that silo, that's great. But what parents will do is they'll look for little deficiencies in your coaching, and that's where all that sort of negative sort of and that back whispering comes from the parents, and that builds that sort of bad culture from behind the scenes. But if you're an open communicator and open lines to the parents or whatever, that might hide some of your bad sort of coaching decisions or whatever, because the parents will go, no, he's great. No, I had a chat with him just this morning. He was out having a coffee. He said good morning. He was able to give me a little bit of an insight of what was happening that day, and that made that parent happy and welcome. And
Mm.
they totally forgot about everything else that was happening on the pitch.
Yeah, I remember an anecdote that one of the coaches, when I was a younger coach, he was a few years older than me and working very hard, and a great guy, great coach. And he said, like, I'm trying to build this thing, right? I'm putting two bricks up on the wall, and I'm turning around to go get the next two bricks, and I come back and one brick's gone. And the parents have stolen the brick. The mentality of I'm trying to do something, but the parents are keep eroding it behind the scenes. And a big part of that is, yeah, he just didn't bring them in on the journey. They didn't feel part of it, or one or two had their noses put out of joint, and they were
Mm,
actively trying to disrupt this thing that he was building as a coach. And it was,
mm,
yeah, great learning for me as a youngster. Like, yeah, like I don't have to be, and I'm not this guy naturally. I'm not the most forthcoming and open, but I'll answer the phone. The easiest way up for me, this is through my heritage and my bringing up, is just tell the truth, because you can never get caught in a lie.
mm.
And just be honest, and maybe you don't need to tell absolutely everything, because that's maybe not always the best way either. But make sure there's enough information. They feel part of the journey. They feel connected to what you're trying to achieve, and most part they'll be good advocates for you and the project.
100%. Yeah, and if you don't know the answer as a coach, just be honest, as you said, and just say, look, I'll get back to you, and find the answer and get back to them, because a parent or a player will appreciate that more than you trying to fudge an answer that's incorrect.
Yeah, totally. Last one for you. Yeah, reflect back on some real moments of pride as a sporting parent that, yeah, I think it's, good for your boys. Hopefully we'll listen back to this, but yeah, a chance that, maybe they don't necessarily reflect or recall themselves, but, as a sporting dad, what are the highlights reel that you look back as a dad, not so much their achievements, but, or maybe it is, but, what is it for you that's given you real joy as a sporting parent?
Um, I think being able to see them, uh, just those little milestones on their journeys throughout their playing career. So, like, massive big steps. Like, I won't look at the results. I won't look at what, but I'll look at how has my son performed or developed for that particular game, and then in 3 months' time, I'll reflect and look back and say, well, has he developed? Has he progressed? What more do I need to do to help him, or what more does the clubs need to do to help him to just keep on those small increments. And I look back and reflect, and you think, especially for say Kalen. I remember a tournament 12 months ago, and he was a bit tentative on certain things on skills, but 12 months later, he's flying through those, and that's where I see a big high for myself as a parent, going, well, yep, 12 months I saw him scared on this, but mate, he's absolutely smashing it now, and that makes you proud. Uh, and that then you see, yep, okay, the coaches have helped me. He's helped himself because he wants to learn and he wants to get more involved and he wants to know more about what he can do to get better. And also his family around and the players around will see that. And, before you know it, achievements will come through the door because, there are knockbacks. It's not an easy journey to go from, club to academy to overseas. There are a lot of knockbacks. We've been through no's through academies, both the two older ones, especially when back in the day when you didn't have 4 or 5 teams in the juniors, you only had 2, the under 15s and under 18s. So it was a lot harder to get into the academy space then. So I guess for them, a no is not a no. You can't give up. I've got friends who've had no's at 2 academies, and before you know it, they've had the 3rd yes, and now they've got A-League contracts. You can never give up. If your goal and your dream is to go overseas, there are roadblocks. Which we haven't even touched on. The biggest roadblock these days for young kids is, having heritage in an actual country. So, like for yourself or myself, if someone says, "Oh, I want to go to Holland or to Belgium," you've got to have that heritage in the background because that's a massive big blocker. If you can't get that passport, then coaches won't want to look at you, scouts won't want to look at you, and agents won't even entertain you to go over there to even have a look because there's 100 kids that can get the passport and can get past that first roadblock of having that passport and that nationality. But yeah, huge achievement. I just see the development. So if he can throw out from the goals 30 meters, and in 2 months he can throw out 35 meters, I can see that he's developing and he's growing in that space. If I can see that he's only able to use his non-dominant foot and kick 15 meters, and in 6 months I can see him kicking 30 meters, I know he's growing and developing. He might not make a pro contract somewhere, but I know that I've done the best for him, and he's done the best for himself, and he's enjoying it along the way. And you can see his growth throughout the sport.
Nice, Dean. Love that. Right, let's move on to rapid fire questions to finish us off. So, first one, provide me and the audience a question to consider for the week.
What does your player really want out of the sport? Like, what do they want to get out of it? Because, the parents might have their own agenda, but what does the player want? What does he really want? Does he just want to go and play with his mates? Does he want to go and play? Oh, sorry, she as well. Does she just want to go play with the mates? Does he or she want to go play just with the school friends? Or do they really want to take it further and go and make money from it? I guess that's the big question that the player has to answer, not the parent.
I love that. That is one of the best ones I've had. That's a really important thing to find out and listen clearly and because they're very different roads, right?
Huge,
great question.
roads. Because if you push them, they're going to come back even quicker.
Yep. Outline a concept or idea that from your world that maybe we can test out in ours.
I guess I've harped on communication a lot, but I guess from my defence background, you've always got to know 2 up and you've always got to know 1 down. So have those communication lines going two up. So that's you as a player. Two up would be your TD or your academy head of academy manager or whatever that is. Make sure you've got a good development with them, good communication right up and also down. So if you're a number one goalkeeper, be good friends with the number two. Get to know him. Really harp on because he's going to probably be wanting to have your position and your job, but at the end of the day, you're both in the same spot. You're both doing the same thing for the club, trying to achieve that result. And at the end of the day, you could be mates, and he could help you out get into another club. So know what's going on with, and he'll help you in your training, your own development too. So he'll push you, even though you're at a certain level. That number two will always strive for more, so he'll keep you climbing higher up the tree. So get to know your one below and get to know your two up.
Love that. That's wicked. Two up, one down. What's a recommendation for a book, movie, TV series, or podcast that sporting parents or athletes or coaches can tune into?
I thought you would have known by now. We don't have time for anything like that. Being parents, we're driving around everywhere and doing all that sort of stuff. But I dare say, if you're going to grab a book, make sure it's one of the good ones out there is How Elite Athletes Are Made, and that sort of will pinpoint you into what we're pretty much speaking on today, but give you an idea of it's not always a smooth road. There are waves and bumps in that road, and it's going to be tough, but you just got to keep on going if that's what you want.
Nice. Lots of time driving around in cars. Perfect time to plug in Strive 365 podcast, by the way. Just
100%. Yeah, it's put a plug in there. Yeah.
if I give you a magic wand and allow you to wave it and you can change anything you like, probably ideally linked to sporting parents, but to sport in general, what would you change?
With my own career, I would have liked to go back and not get injured, but can't do that one. But I guess for most parents, because there was a big loss in development and fitness and ability to grow, is that COVID years. If I could take a wand and get back and remove COVID, it was great for me. I was in operation, but a lot of kids in that space lost opportunities. So especially like the 05 years when it comes to Joey's and that opportunities in that space right across the country, there was nothing for them. They were a lost year. They missed out on a lot of things. And coming out of that, I guess we went too quick. We went from 0 to 100 instead of building it up slowly and getting them gradually back into the sport. As soon as the doors were open, we just went 100% back into everything. And that sort of didn't help the kids sort of, especially when they're growing, all those injuries coming back through the sport. So if I could get a wand, I'd get rid of COVID.
If you did you have one piece of advice that was given to you that you feel you can share with us?
Yeah, I guess, going through your journey, you've got to think that one day you could be at the top of your game. You could be the number one player in the country, in the state, in wherever. So, but those champions, they're not made in a day. They take time. And you've got to be able to be persistent and patient and flexible throughout that time. And then one day you'll be that champion that you've made yourself, no one else.
What is the thing you are striving for today?
I guess we're in pre-season, aren't we? Or we're just about to hit pre-season. So I guess, I don't want my boys to start their season as if they're the sluggish ones that have done nothing, or they haven't paid attention to a training program that's been given to them by a club. So I'll make sure that they are staying on top of their own fitness and their own development. And, there's going to be days where they'll say, no, I don't want to go for a run or I don't want to go and do that. That's great. So I'll just create something different. Let's go play some basketball. Let's go do something else. Let's go play a bit of cricket outside. But what they don't understand is they're still doing their running. They're still doing fitness and they're still running up and down the basketball court, especially if you play a full pitch and 2-on-2 over a period. They're going to be probably more tired than what the program's given them.
Nice. And finally, leave us with a quote for the week.
I guess going back and being a champion, it does take time. I have to say, without self-discipline, success is impossible.
Here, here. Hey, Dean, this has been great to try and navigate the future high performance careers of three boys in the same sport, two which are crazy goalkeepers, must be impossible at times or feel impossible. But some of the wisdom that you've been able to share with me and people listening hopefully makes that journey a little bit smoother, shorter, easier, successful for one or two different sort of families. Then I think that's success as well. But hopefully, by drawing upon your own reflections, you've been able to stimulate some further thought yourself, and hopefully, this sort of medium can help you as much as it can help us. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no dramas. And obviously, those networks that you've got and you help, like, say, for instance, us just chatting today, I could go to Gareth, to yourself here, Gareth, and say, look, I've got this contract. Do you want to have a look over it? Tell me what you think. Is it fair for a player? The contract could be, 50% sign-on bonus, 10% for the agent. Is that fair? Should I be looking for less sign-on? Should I be looking for more? But at least you're creating that network, and you've got a bit of you might be 90% confident that that's okay, but at least that extra 10% help sort of then solidifies you that, yep, I'm doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And the key to that is build your network, ask questions. You're not sure, find somebody who might. As a starting point, I've said this a lot. It takes people to buy me a $7 oat latte to get an hour of my time. And if it's at a time that fits me, then I'm more than happy to sit down and have these sort of conversations with anybody about anything. So yeah, go and ask people. For the most part, people are willing to help. So yeah, great parting advice.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers.